We're heading up very quickly to 6:30 here on the South African Morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Gareth Edwards. We could soon be able to access some of our retirement funds. Yesterday, Finance Minister Godongwana is saying draft legislation will be published by the middle of the year to get more details on that. Now, currently, you can only access your money after resigning or retiring. Let's find out what this change could possibly mean. Jonathan Goldberg from Global Business Solutions joining us. Jonathan, always a pleasure to have you on the show to help someone like me, Gareth, understand what this means. So when we say partial access to our retirement funds, how and why?
You and your viewers, thanks for having me. This is a change that's been talked about for a long time. And the current problem is if you resign, you can access the total amount of your retirement savings. So the total amount that you've saved, Gareth, if you resign tomorrow, you could access the whole amount. That means that leaves you high and dry when you eventually get to retirement age. This system will be a system that will be implemented going forward. So your current savings in your retirement funds will be not subject to this new proposed legislation. Let me take an example just to help the viewers. If this is implemented on the 1st of March 2023 and you had 250,000 Rand in your savings, that's preserved. If you resigned, you could access that. But in the next year, you saved 40,000 into the two-pot system, the second pot, and 20,000 into the first pot. It's called the two-pot system. So you save 20,000 into the first pot, 40,000 into the second pot. The first pot you could access in emergencies, 20,000 in that year. The second pot, the 40,000, would go into your long-term retirement savings. You wouldn't be able to access that. And that's the important thing. Even if you resign, you would only be able to access a portion, the 20,000, and the 40,000 would be the long-term saving portion.
And at this point, Jonathan, I can hear viewers asking me to ask you, what portion? Do we have any clarity yet?
Sorry, I missed that question.
Not a problem. The portion, the proportion, the percentage that you can access from the second pot. Any suggestion as to what that might be?
So that's a third. So again, going forward, I think that's very important because there's been a lot of confusion around this. When this legislation is implemented going forward, a third of that saving. So in that particular year, the 2023 year, you save 60,000. The 20,000 portion you'd be able to access in these kinds of emergencies. The 40,000 would then be preserved for long-term saving because that's a problem in the country. In a survey that was done over 3 years, 700,000 people accessed these funds. A total amount of 78 billion Rand was then withdrawn out of pension provident fund savings, and that's disastrous.
It is, for two reasons. I was about to ask you, why would a move like this be so important? One, I imagine, is to stop people spending their retirement to simply go buy a car or go on holiday. They see it as a credit card because we're very bad at managing our money. That's one. Jonathan, two, could this be also because by taking 78 billion Rand out of retirement coffers, it takes away any movement for government? Is that a fair assessment on my behalf?
It is fair, but let's take an example. One of the amendments that is also in the budget, which people are not speaking much about, is the change to pension provident funds, allowing them to invest 45% of their funds into infrastructure bills in South Africa and another 10% in Africa. 55% can be invested into infrastructure bills. Now, you can't, as a trustee on that fund, decide to do that when you have these massive amounts of withdrawal. So it stabilizes the particular industry, allowing funds to make long-term investments. And we know generally that long-term investments are very important for pensioners long-term because they give the best returns. Very, very important. This legislation will be enabling. Trustees still have the ultimate decision in respect of those particular funds. So the legislation will enable funds to make a decision of the third, that 20,000, and the two-thirds, the 40,000. But ultimately, the trustees of the funds will have to make that call because they are independent, and independent, they've got fiduciary duties.
Jonathan, just before I say goodbye to you this morning, you and I are talking about this pension fund, these changes to your retirement funds as well. But just while I've got you on, last minute or so, what were your thoughts of the budget speech? As a Labour lawyer, what stood out for you? Was it this retirement funds element, or what else perhaps stood out for you before I say goodbye?
First of all, I thought it was nice and short. So I think Minister Godongwana is now great because he gets right to the point. It was nice, short. We could see what was going on. And I think it was balanced. I don't think it's too pro-employer or pro-employer. I think it's a balanced budget. I think we've done an excellent job with what we've got. And I think it sends out a positive message that we went through with the reduction in tax for companies. It's a minimum reduction, but it's a reduction in the right direction. And I think the budget's balanced. I like the focus on small, medium-sized enterprise. And I like the employment tax use incentive increase, because that just makes sense, because we see the results of those kind of incentives.
Jonathan, as always, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Renowned labour lawyer Jonathan Goldberg from Global Business Solutions joining us as well. So it was a couple of years ago we would have seen people going and deliberately resigning to simply access their pension funds or their retirement funds. They would get all of it out with nothing left to retire on. It seems now, when this law does come into play, it's not quite as simple as that. So we'll watch that development later in the year.